the WWDC week, almost like a Christmas. Okay, let's get into it. In the spirit of reconciliation, Melbourne CocoaHeads acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend their respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So tonight we have exciting agenda. Marcelo Espirijao. Oh no. Cool, okay, so you already familiar with the code of conduct. So if anyone is being harassed on any ground, just let us know and we will deal with that. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please wait for the end of the topic, unless the speaker asks for you to be part of the presentation. Otherwise, please hold on your questions to the end. And let's give it up to our sponsors, Mantel Group, and our silver sponsor, RAE Group. Before we jump into the topics, I'm going to remind you that we have two more events that are happening. One next week, Coding Night, and Wednesday, it's going to be here. And the last Tuesday of the month, CocoaHeads Social Night at the Brooklyn Brewing. We also have our sibling groups, Sydney CocoaHeads, GGG Melbourne, and the CocoaHeads Social. You can find us online in Melbourne CocoaHeads, or in Slack, or in Mastodon. You want to use it? I don't know. So we have various dedicated channels on Slack for Meetup. If you want to ask a question or talk about the Meetup, help us organize, Melbourne volunteers. If you're looking for a job or looking to hire, also post your advertisement there. And if you want to do a talk, I think it's crashed again. No? Yeah. Nice. If you want to do a talk, come speak to us. Mentoring is also available. And let's dive into the most exciting part because, let's be honest, that introduction been boring. But WWDC recap is going to be really interesting.
Hi, welcome. Today I am Marcelo, and let's start again. Hi, welcome. Today we're going to do a recap of WWDC 2026. We're going to talk about all the things that came through. My name is Marcelo. I am staff engineer at ANZ, and I hope we have a good time. We have a lot of things to cover, so we're going to be talking quickly and covering a lot of slides. First, last day of this guy, and he welcomes everybody. Good morning, welcome to WWDC, and talked about all the things, all the cool places where the iPhone is used. And then we go to Craig, and our WWDC is basically divided in 3 parts. We're going to be talking about platform improvements, we're going to be talking about trust and safety, we're going to be talking about Apple Intelligence and Siri. And surprise, the name of the next version is 27, and it's going to be iOS 27, iPadOS 27, watchOS 27, and so on. First thing, as usual, Greg goes and talks about what's coming up with their cracking marketing team. And this time their crack marketing team went, I have no idea what they were on, but they went here, they went back to the moon, and they went back to the park, and then they told that the name they had chosen for macOS is Golden Gate. And here's the little Craig. Their car is actually a pretty good head figure. It's a good piece. And there you go. There's got to be a Craig disappointed face at some point. So first off, platform improvements. On Craig, one thing that catches my attention, and I'm sure any other of you that picks on this stuff is going to notice that he bobbles a lot as he talks. Yeah. And then we go to this executive whose name I don't remember, and I'll call her Cynthia for namesake. And we point out the 200 changes that they lined out for this year's WWDC. And to begin with, and in the sense that they want to take it away as being the ugly thing that nobody wants to talk about, let's get design through first. And they got this guy here, let's call him Jack. And he clearly is the guy that decided to take one for the team and talk about design. And to begin with, we talk about liquid glass and what they're doing with it. Everybody's favorite. This is what liquid glass looks like in iOS 26. This is what it looks like in iOS 27. Back and forth. You can see that there are refractions of light that are not there anymore. You can see on the face on the back that you can see the continuation of the face on the back. And with that, we also get a cool slider that gives us the ability to make it more transparent or more opaque. And I played with it, like here, transparent, opaque. I played with it, and I found that what they chose as the middle ground is good for most people, me included. Other than that, we also have the toolbar. They made this bad decision of making the toolbar a gradient in iOS 26, and they put a line there to define the toolbar. Again, thanks for that. The sidebar is back where it should never have left, on the corner. Also, the icons have color back in, so you can tell which application is which from the color alone. They have identity back. Also, corners are back. And this blows my mind. Like they put Slack in as the gold standard of corner radius. Like the Electron app is the definition of what a good user interface is. But now we have the same corner radius throughout the Mac, and that's great. Icons, this is the icon. This is how the Maps icon looks like on iOS 26. They made it more complex, more subtle. They mix it all together and it's a lot less blurry than it was before. We still have the glass effects through, but it's way more crisp than the previous versions. It's very hard to tell just from looking at both, but once you see in the phone, you kind of appreciate that the subtle changes in the iconography is actually, when you look at it, it's actually good. I still think that UI peaked 2 years ago in the history of mankind, but if this is what we got, I think it's an improvement, and all through the platforms, they're all getting these upgrades. Now, responsiveness, they invested a lot of time clearly on getting the system more responsive. Scrolls are quicker, they feel more fluid. They have 30% faster app launches, 70% loading of new captures in photos, 80% faster AirDrop transfers, and 5 times faster browsing transfer in files in iPadOS. And as a side note, I love how they compose the structure, as in going from a number that's already very good into bigger and bigger numbers. I think they're masters in this craft. CPU scheduler is what decides what tasks are going to do what at what time in the processor on the machine. They have optimized it even more, and that helps with the fluidity, it helps with saving battery time. And as a side note, my opinion is that the #1 decision that got the iPhone to be as good as it is these days is the decision on iPhone 1.0 to invest in CPU scheduling. And that's where the butter smooth user interface comes from the front iPhone and so on. And they made it even better now. And all of these goes back through to iPhone 11, all these new features. So everything that iOS 26 supports, iOS 27 will support as well. Network transitions, when you're walking through and you pick up on Wi-Fi, it's going to be a smoother transition between your cellular and the Wi-Fi network you're going through. We have a new feature in photos, in messages, in that when you're sending a video or something, a larger content through messages, you can see a progress bar, and you know something. Yeah, it's a small detail, but it's a good quality of life improvement. Well, search is a big one. It's hard for them to represent it in a way that makes sense, but most of you are engineers, so you know how frustrating the indexing of Spotlight can be. And they seem to have invested a lot of time in making it right this time. And with that, we're going to see a lot of improvements in being able to pick up the right things from Spotlight directly. And this is absolutely one of the pieces that they had to do before AI could actually be delivered in their platforms. Also, Mail has a better ranking system. And Photos is now able to share albums with Android folk, which is good. Also, shared albums share the full size of the photos. Also, menopause, thank you. Menopause and perimenopause have their sessions in the Health app. And I like this one. The AirPods now have a mixer in equation. Equalizer, thank you.
Just like the first iPod.
Just like the first iPod. If you are fortunate enough to have a Vision Pro, your panoramic photos you'll be able to expand your panoramic photos and walk close to it. And it looks like that. You'll also be able to set them as backgrounds for your environment. This is one that they haven't. It's once you see it, once you use the feature, you actually feel it. But I think they had an Apple Maps city navigation that was already pretty good in my opinion, but they just improved it by a lot. And one thing that they did was when you're in a city and you have lots of skyscrapers that are mirrored around, You could see artifacts in the mirrors in the previous versions, but if you zoom in now, you can see the buildings with the actual windows as if they were taken from your perspective and not from the floor. And that was a problem that I had before, because the photos were taken from the floor, so you could see a reflection of the other skyscrapers around. So this is a big deal. Now we're back to Craig to talk about trust and safety. And trust and safety is a feature that was around in Apple for a long time, but now this release is based on children, mostly. She's single, I remember her name, and we're gonna call him Pete and Monica. And now kids have their own accounts. I'm sorry, I can't remember their names. Kids have their own accounts. And the goal is to allow parents to control what kids can see, who kids can talk to, and when kids have access, and how parents can guide kids. And a lot of us here have kids or have had smaller children, and we know how difficult it is to have conversations with a kid when you don't want to be the blocker. So the perspective that they're taking is to allow the parents to enable the kids to have the right conversations and be able to access the right things at the right time without the parents having to tell them not to all the time. And here is a photo of a teenager very excited about her father blocking her access to things.
Father isn't too excited. He doesn't block anything.
I know, like she looks so, any other kid would be kicking and screaming, so I found this photo hilarious. Also new to that is blocking of specific websites, of allowing, or the opposite, allowing specific websites on the browser. And that translates also to how parents get their messages asking for approval. That goes to people who the kids talk to as well. We already had communication safety, where images that would display nudity would be blocked for a child's account, but now we also have blockage of images that might have gory content. Okay, and we have time allowances, and we can allow parents to set specific times for specific categories. And we can put on schedules. And we have control of pausing devices, when we can change schedules. And as a parent, I think that if my kid was growing up and we had these features at hand, I think some of the conversations would have been easier as a father. As a developer, we have a lot of APIs available to lock into the features, to be able to allow kids to enjoy the features in the appropriate for their ages. And next up, we have Greg again, and he bubbles, and he bubbles, and he goes, and he goes, and we're talking about AI now, and we're talking about how how every other company is focusing on AI as a bandwagon, and how Apple wants to make sure that AI makes sense for the use cases of the user. And that's when we get to Apple Intelligence, and we start talking about the big thing that came out this WWDC. The Apple Intelligence bit is divided in architecture, Siri, and apps. Architecture-wise, we have the user focused on the center with the devices around it, and the Apple foundation models surrounding everything. About the models, we heard a lot about Gemini last year, about the business that Apple was hiring Google to employ Gemini. Actually, Apple is not using Gemini directly. They're using Gemini to train their own models, and the models that got trained, they are trained specifically for the Apple platforms and for the Apple users. And they're calling the next generation Apple Foundation models. From memory, there are 5, some mobile and some cloud, or maybe 6. Some. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Amy just mentioned about the machine learning app website, blog post about it. The models, they are multimodal, so we have image, voice, and text. We have image understanding and generation, and they are more powerful on-device models. I'm genuinely excited about that. They have higher accuracy dictation, better language understanding, expressive voices. Surrounding all that, we have something that is calling the system orchestrator, and is able to employ personal context, world knowledge, actions, and on-screen awareness. Personal context understanding is about knowing where the user are, what the user is doing. We have better world knowledge that's able to go in the web and find things that the user needs, the information that the user needs. We have app actions that are basically Apple's way of doing MCPs throughout the app, that the LLM can go and harvest the information it needs at the right time. We have on-screen awareness, where the LLMs can just know what's happening on the screen and help the user with what it's at hand. And then we have Siri apps and system-wide experiences that encompass everything. We'll get to those. Privacy, everything is locked. Whatever happens on device stays on device. Whatever goes to the cloud leaves no traces about identifying the user. According to them, everything is auditable by a third party. So your data is not stored, it's only used to execute a request. Independent experts can verify. Back to Craig to talk about Siri. Hand it over to, here's Mike Rockwell, I think. This is the Siri you know, and they popped the bubble. And they're calling it Siri plus Apple Intelligence, or Siri AI. And that's a very interesting distinction. They're not calling it New Siri, they are calling it Siri AI, which sounds like it's not a new version of Siri, but a feature-enhanced version of Siri, because it run only on specific hardware requirements. So it's more capable, it's more conversational, has a dedicated Siri app, visual intelligence, right with Siri. How am I with time?
You're fine.
Yep. All right. So this is what it looks like. You talk to Siri, it can give you information from the dynamic island as you go. Information on messages, maps, and if you didn't know, the orange color of the Gold Gate Bridge is an international orange. About it being a more capable assistant, this is a very cool demo, and this is a lesson that they learned from 2 years ago, when everything they showed with Apple Intelligence was pre-rendered, and this time they were careful of doing the demos live as they showed, and you could actually see like delays in the responses coming, and you could see them reading the responses coming and actually reacting to them, because they weren't being sure about exactly how it would come. So asking about concerts of Suki Waterhouse, and Siri says that there are concerts in Melbourne. He asks to remind when the lottery is open, and then he starts playing some songs, all contextual. Then finds a rock in Instagram. Where's the rock? Somewhere nearby. Is it close to my friend? Yeah, that's his address. Found the address of a friend in his messages and got directions to it. Another one, photos of last weekend in his ranch. Lots of cows. I don't want cows, I want my family photos. Here's the family photos. Want to add to family album here. Siri is more conversational, hardware allowing. You can change pace, expressibility. You can make an American voice if that's your thing. It's baked into the keyboard, like the right to Siri, I believe it's called, it's just there. It's the voice recognition is a lot better, is what you expect after using, say, Whisper from ChatGPT. You can do it in CarPlay, you can do it while running, because we all run like that. And here is Jimmy, and we're going to talk about something, how it's more conversational. Here is Siri being context aware of what's happening on the screen, talking about the message that he received without actually leaving the message. And it's about it being adapted to the user interactions that you get, whatever platform you are in, being in the Vision, being in on the watch, being in on the phone or on the Mac. Here's what it looks like. I haven't played on my phone, but I suspect that the double tap on the Siri bar on the bottom is gone, because now you bring it from the top.
Yeah, from the dynamic island.
Right. Amy, are you trying? Yeah, so if you tap on the Siri on the bottom, does it bring up Siri as well? No? There you go. It's gone. So long. So Jimmy's talking about the World Cup and what's coming up in the World Cup. And the thing here is that he brings the thing down, the dragger down, and it becomes his own app, and it's a chat interface app. And he does a follow-up question about dishes for the Brazil versus Morocco game. And I can attest that Siri was spot on in coxinha and pão de queijo being fantastic party dishes. I am Brazilian. And I know. So this is my checking that Siri actually came back with meaningful information. His daughter had ideas for dessert, and they brought it up in the same conversation. They wrapped it up in a menu for a party that mixed both Moroccan and Brazilian dishes into something interesting. And ready to send to his, what is it called? Go Chasers group. And I don't know, whoever names their group like that shouldn't be on a video. But the interesting thing is, what caught my attention here is the way that Siri phrased the question. It sounds like Jimmy is writing the message himself. It doesn't sound like a corporate slop that you see sometimes with AI writing from, right? Spotlight becomes Siri, changes the interface in adopting Siri. So no more of the isolated icon that we had before. You can also, testing? You can also right-click on things to ask Siri, and that's a contextual. Thank you, Jane. Index contextual. Here's an example of Jimmy typing something and opening something quickly. What caught my attention here is he is just writing family stuff and typing enter quickly, and that did not go through Siri. There's a normal Spotlight interaction that you expect the indexing to have things that you need right away. But then when he types something that the system recognizes as being actually a question that should be offloaded to Siri, it actually gives his interface to call Siri. And this is what it looks like when Siri is actually open. And he can also right-click on things and get contextual conversation about the things that he's clicking on. Say in this case here, he's clicking on 3 PowerPoints and is trying to get Siri to actually read through them and give him feedback on how that works. And here's one point that I found interesting is that he just typed this quickly and there was a typo here. It's possibly difficult to see in the screen, but point is Siri, he reacted to it and it just felt like a normal presentation. Like it felt like a human and not a very pre-made art. The Siri app looks like this. It's available on all platforms, even on the watch. And there's an interesting one that I glanced through. The watch now has a new grid that it shows when you click on the ring. This is what it looks like on Vision OS, and you look at it and it knows you're talking to it. And now comes Seb, to talk about visual intelligence. And you'll notice that Siri now lives in the camera. It's private. Visual intelligence can take photos of your, tell you stuff about nutrition. You can take photos of receipts. There's a new keyboard shortcut in the Mac that you can engage with screenshots of Siri. You can use it to add things to your calendar. There's also an iPad app for it. And in Vision Pro, if you are fortunate enough to have one, you can look at things and talk to Siri about it. Siri knows what you're looking at. You can look at things and contextually ask about the things that Siri already knows. So look at that boot and ask if it fits on a bag that you were looking at on a website. I think that blew my mind. You can write with Siri. Siri now can compose full texts. That's what it looks like. And I mentioned this before, it knows who you talk to and how you talk to. So if you write a message to your mom and you write a message to your boss, it's going to use the same tones that you usually use to talk to those people. So sending a message to your boss is going to send a message professionally, in theory. And you can also review your text. And proofreading is also automatic now, and because everything is baked in the keyboard, you get, most applications are going to get it for free, unless your company, the company works for, blocks it. Siri everywhere. And back to Craig to talk about apps. Safari. Let's call her Madalena. Madalena talks about tabs, and tabs now are organizable by topic. And if you are one of those mad people that get your toolbar to look like this, automatically it's going to start being grouped by this, and it's going to be grouped as you go. There's also Notify Me, and Notify Me allows you to sign up for a website, and Siri is going to watch for changes on the website, and now it's done privately. You can also describe an extension for things that you could possibly do on shortcuts. An extension in the browser, an extension can be the right choice for that. Passwords allow you to fix passwords automatically. On messages, you now have tabs for reminders and add to notes according to context. Also, if somebody asks for a beach picture or something, when you open pictures to be added, it's going to show you beach pictures. You can also get suggestions in mail. You already have that, but it's better. You can describe your events in calendar, and when you're on the phone with somebody, say an airliner, Siri is going to know that you are calling the airliner. It's going to give you relevant information according to what you have on your phone. And now we have Patricia that's going to talk about home. One of the features is about getting all those notifications that you get from home, group them together. We talk about, yep. I'll finish the apps. We can, it's able to track images and classify them, so we can search for them as well. And shortcuts, this is where I'll finish. Shortcuts is very powerful, but it's actually overcomplicated for anyone really, not developers. I can do something like this if I put my time in, but I don't often. Now you can describe a shortcut. So you can describe, when I'm leaving work, message Pedro that on my way. And then there's a shortcut that does just like that, and there are shortcuts specific for platforms as well. And now with Susan, and we were going to talk about image playgrounds. Just to wrap up. Yep. Just to wrap up, we talk about backgrounds on the developer side. A lot of image backgrounds, a lot of generative capabilities. John is going to talk about photos. This is black magic. Being able to reframe a person after the shot's taken is just crazy. It's available in multiple languages. If you use cloud services, there's a limit, but if you have Cloud Plus, you can, like all the subscribers. And that's it. For you to get writing with Siri, you need the latest iPhones, but if you're not writing with Siri and you don't want to use the latest listening to Siri, anything from iOS 16 works, from iPhone 16 works. And that's it. And I'll leave this for developers. Thank you.
You're right.
Sorry, go back to the start, that'll help.
It was close.
Okay, here we go. So, just finished a project I'm working on for a company that was moving to multi-platform. And when I'm talking multi-platform, they were native on both iOS and Android. So I know a bit of fair warning. I'm going to mention the A word and the G word and the K word in this. So I know it's dub week, but hopefully you'll be able to put up with some naughty words like that in this talk. But mostly what I'm talking about is how to make iOS and Android teams that actually work and perform. I'll just call out that something that I'd already been thinking about this, but both Andrew and Bok both talked about what it means to be a developer. In their talks about in terms of AI, but similar thing here is going to be what it is to be a developer, and when it comes to cross-platform development, how it works. But I'd say both of those are great takes on it. Okay, next thing. Some of you might realise I've been around for a little while, and in the beginning there were books, and the books for everything. If you ever wanted to know anything about anything, were the four Dummies books. You could literally find out about anything with a 4 Dummies book. But one of the things I always loved about them, and lots of other books had this as well, I think the O'Reilly books had it, was they had a legend. So they had these icons, technical stuff, tips, whatever. So in this talk, we're going to have some a legend. We're going to have a rabbit hole. We're going down a couple of those. A soapbox, just a little rant. Something that I've got a hot take on. And final one, pub talk, which is I'm going to say something, but I don't want to hear about it again until we get to the pub. And the first rabbit hole is, what the hell, why were soapboxes so substantial back in the day that you could stand on them? Why were they so big? And why did people need so much soap? We don't have them anymore, but just, odd thing when I was like, I'll get a picture of a soapbox. And I was like, oh, okay, that's more than I expected. So when I talk about multi-platform development, I've been doing this quite a long time. Some of you know that I do both Android and iOS development. But back in the day, I actually did Mac OS and Windows 2000 development. So built native Mac OS applications, built native Windows applications. And even back then, big believer in using the right tools for it. There was some nasty Java tool around at the time. I don't think it went anywhere. Anyone heard of it again? No. Fair enough. But most of what I do today is either iOS or Android development. And quick note about cross-platform tools. And when I'm saying cross-platform tools, you'll get that in a section. Or why would we go native? One of the things that I always feel with the cross-platform tools is that it compromises your decision, and you're tied to a partner effectively that might not necessarily have all of the platform upgrades and things in their roadmap. So, how long is your cross-platform tool going to be around for? 3 years, 10 years? Who knows? So this is going to bring back some memories for some people. Tooling. I remember this, but this was probably the shortest lived of all of them. I don't think anyone released a Java app for iOS. But even tools like Xamarin, Microsoft dropped the support for it. Other companies have picked up the support, but now you're dealing with quite small companies. I'm even going to pick on Flutter and say that, the same thing. Google, it's not their primary platform. They don't put full support. You can do most things in Flutter, but if you want to do app intents and app functions, which is the Android version of app intents, does Flutter support it, you're relying on a small, I think it's 2 or 3 developers who are building a tool to allow Flutter to interact with those. I'll even go as far as to say Mac Catalyst. iPad, the apps that are Mac Catalyst apps generally don't feel very good. I'd go in, I've never been a fan of it. I think it's a shortcut that doesn't really win you much. So one of the things that I'll actually call out is I think one of the reasons of Apple's success on the breadth of platforms. Like nobody is, not that Apple's necessarily dominating, but Apple has a really good story on the desktop, the iPad, the phone, and the watch. Very few people, there really isn't anyone else that has that story. And one of the reasons I think is Apple never went and said, just take your Mac app and stick it on your iPad, or they did have phone apps on your iPad, but most of the good iPad apps are actually built bespoke for it. And they had a different paradigms, and the same thing with the watch. And I'll call out probably the most obvious one that was, in my opinion, a complete disaster. Windows Mobile, and then trying to stick it all in the dock with the tiles. It was a mess. It didn't work. Didn't work for desktop users. Didn't work for phone users. And by the way, Google's releasing the Google Book, which is an Android-based laptop. So hope it goes well. I'm not holding much out for it. Final thing on the cross-platform tools. I'll call out tools like KMP and Swift on Android. These are tools that give you sort of your bottom layer of your software development stack. Typically, the networking and business logic, and leaving the actual UI that's being worked on to native development. Again, I still think on both of these, you're still being compromised. KMP is a classic for this. You can only use a small number of the tools, third-party libraries in the ecosystem. So you sort of think about all of the tooling that's available in Kotlin and the rich Java ecosystem that it hooks into. I used that J word again, sorry. But KMP can only use tools that have been converted to be KMP compatible, and basically that they compile natively. Similarly, Swift on Android, I think you're making a similar compromise, and again, you're putting your trust in the people that are building that project to take it along. I don't think Apple's putting millions of dollars into Swift on Android to make sure it's compatible with, every time things gets upgraded, app functions are out there now on Android side. Does Swift on Android, is it going to be just an out-of-the-box experience, or is it going to be a right pain in the backside? So, just a quick one in terms of who the talk about cross-platform for. It's about for people who are building long-term projects. If you're working on a startup or that's on the verge of going out of business, unless you get the next release out tomorrow, and you're just going as fast as you can, just build however you want. What I'm talking about is for projects where you're expecting to work on these for a long time. You're thinking about what you're doing and how you're doing it. Probably classically enterprise development, not this type of enterprise, not this type of enterprise, but this type of enterprise. So big business, people who are thinking about what their app's going to be doing in 1 year, 2 year, 5 years time. And they're not just throwing it away. And I called out the sort of the startup world. It's a very different way of working. I've worked in it a number of times. It's a great thing to do. It's such a joy, especially when you've been doing enterprise development for a long time. The thrill of just writing code and going, I don't have time for unit tests, I don't have time for CI/CD, I build it off my machine, I ship it to the App Store and people start using it. It's fantastic. It's very liberating. You're also not in a stand-up every day for half an hour and things like that. So what I came up with is, I'm calling this the iceberg of software development. And those people in that startup world live in this sort of environment. They're at the tip of the iceberg. and it's what people think software developers do. They write code, they fix compiler issues, they solve crashes, they get apps out there. And then there's all of us, well, I'm gathering us all. For those of us who live in enterprise development land, there's all of the other things that you have. So, like integrating with APIs. I've worked on a project where we argued for 6 months with the back-end guys about how the API should be built. Testing, even simple things like having coffees and arguing on Slack, all those things. I'm specifically calling out enterprise agile ceremonies and the way that enterprise bastardizes agile, but that's a discussion for the pub. And then finally arguing with the security team. But these are what I'm calling below the waterline activities. Now these are all of the activities that we as software developers have to do. And one of the things I'm calling out in multi-platform development is that the small part of the code that you've actually got to work on when you're working on Android and iOS is this bit at the top, and all of this stuff at the bottom has to get done as well. But most of that is actually can be done by either the iOS or the Android team. And there's no reason that both of them have to do it at the same time. And more often than not, you work in organizations where both the iOS and the Android people are arguing about the designs at the same time. They're both having headaches with the integrating with APIs. They're both refining tickets at the same time. Having coffee, that they can do together. But so much of the work ends up getting repeated, and why have everyone there? So, just a little rabbit hole for me. It's probably needs a little bit of a soapbox there as well. One of the things I do note is that we're also very reluctant to rewrite code. Often we don't know what the answer is to our development until we get to the end of it. And we might not have made the cleanest thing, but also the business didn't really know what they wanted at the start. And now at the end, we've sort of got that articulated. And one of the things, and I will call out all of the people in the last project I worked on, they were really good at doing a big chunk of refactoring after each milestone was, or after each sort of delivery was reached. And in a couple of cases, we rewrote huge chunks of code just to make it better, and was like, oh, now we understand the business actually wants this, 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 and this, not just this bit that they started telling us about at the start. And it only took 2 weeks to write a screen that had taken probably 8 weeks of work to build. And also call out proof of concepts. Done it a couple of times. Proof of concepts should, especially if they're to test out, not necessarily just can Swift UI do X, Y, Z, or can Android do X, Y, Z, but like proof of concepts, we want to test whether something, whether the customers engage well with a particular thing. Just do it on one platform. I'm a true believer that you can test this out on one platform. It'll be quick to build it out on the other one. But again, you compound when errors are made in your proof of concept, you need to go back. If you've got 2 platforms that you're building at the same time, your reluctance to actually go and throw code away and start again is very difficult. So, how do we get to a place where we can do multi-platform development quickly and well? And unfortunately, this is also about squishy people problems. It's not really about the code. It's about how you set up your teams and build things out. So the first and what I think is the best way to do it is what I'll call is the path well traveled. Just let one team go first. your iOS team is going to build out XYZ feature, and a couple of weeks later or months, whenever, as they're getting close to the very end, you then bring in a couple of people on the Android side, and you just have them chase behind. The Android people are not going to have to worry about the bizarre API calls. They're not going to have to argue about the design. There's going to be very few things that they're going to bump into. And I will call out one project I worked on, and Jared's in the crowd here, so you can ask his experience of it, because he's one of the people who worked on it. We worked on a project, and I think we had 8 or 9 iOS developers who'd worked probably for a year, and we set up to build the Android project. 2 Android developers, and Jared's pretty good at doing this coding thing as well. But they copied a lot of the code, and I think it was 8 weeks or 12 weeks, and they pretty much had most of the UI done and hooked things up. So they were able to go so fast with that. And one thing, I'll talk about it a little bit in future, is also we had the same architecture behind the scenes. Unfortunately, showing my age a little bit, and break the illusion that Jared's not 21. It was RX that we built it in, but we had it on exactly the same on both platforms. So if you can't convince your delivery manager and the people who run squads that just let one team build it and the other team will go and do something else for a while, the next strategy that I think works is, or it works efficiently, is what I'm calling the mismatch team. So you might have 4 or 5 people actually working on and going through all of the iterations on, I'll use the example in iOS. So they're working on iOS, and at the same time, you might have 1 or 2 people on Android building out the features. So again, the iOS team are taking point on arguing with the designers, arguing with the networking people, going backwards and forwards with the product people, and the Android people are just trying to catch up as quickly as they possibly can. And again, works reasonably well. Your Android team has to be fairly focused to know that they've just got to look at getting through the cards and building. And this works well for, in my opinion, for organizations that have we've got 3 months to build a feature and we've got to deliver it out. We can't wait then, a couple of weeks later for the next feature. Then finally, you can't convince the product managers or anyone in the team that you've got to have the same number of developers, iOS and Android, working on it. So I'm going to call it eating spaghetti from each end. So, like I said, you've got the same number of developers. In this case, get your iOS developers to build the back-end features, integrate with the API. Android people, we're going to start building design and doing the designs and working through the UI and hooking the UI up and testing the UI with fake data and, like I say, trying to meet in the middle. Idea being that when the Android people get to the networking side of things and the iOS people get to the UI side of things, hopefully the other team has fought the good fight. One other thing that I think helps is you need support from within the organisation to do this. But one of the things I think I've seen is often in organisations that the Android and iOS leads don't talk to each other. They don't talk to about how they're setting things up and what they're building. Doesn't happen in all organisations. Some organisations, they actually do talk about it. But probably one of the most obvious things is to come up with a relatively similar architecture so that concepts that you see in the iOS side of things transfer over to the Android side of things. I I had the example before of using RX. That was a pretty obvious one because RX was nearly identical in iOS and Android in terms of how you would build the structures. Today, I worry if you chose RX as a platform, but with both SwiftUI and Jetpack Compose, you're getting often a lot of the structures are very similar behind the scenes with your flows combine and async code, room/core data, etc., etc. There's a lot of similarities there. One other thing from the platform engineering side is also how your backend is structured. Haven't done a lot of work with it, but from what I've seen of it, things like protobuf, where a lot of the client-side code is defined in the protocol. So you basically, as you define your networking stack, you're also getting the initial client code. But another one that I had was we had quite a smart. It's always good to have smart people and let them build stuff for you. We had a very smart iOS engineer actually build our back end and built a common client library for both iOS and Android. iOS and Android. The back end was written in Kotlin, and then it basically had a translation layer for Swift. But it meant that when objects were defined on the back end, they generate a new library. It got pushed into our artifact system, and boom, you downloaded the new artifacts, and you didn't have to worry about converting JSON files into native objects and things like that. So I think the platform team needs to, one, have that guidance of how the architecture across both platforms should be similar-ish, but also that push into your BFFs. And I know GraphQL is another one that a lot of people like, again, good client libraries. The next one is what developers can do. And the first thing I'm going to call out is that you should be reading each other's code. Kotlin and Swift are very, very similar. And one of my little fun facts is that Kotlin and Swift started actually as a language, like the initial commit into their code bases a couple of months apart. So Swift was July 2010, and Kotlin, the first commit, was November 2010. So they're for two languages that no one had announced, they got created a couple of months apart. Down one of those rabbit holes. I actually think we actually live in a golden age of software development. And probably one of the key things is nearly all of the tools we use, especially for mobile development, are free. So this is actually the first software development platform I bought. It was around 700 Australian dollars, back when $700 was actually meaningful. This was another tool that I bought back in the day. It was about $1,600 Australian. And my favourite thing, and I argued with the accountant for a long time, and he told me basically you're never going to win an argument with the tax office, was that the yearly upgrade fee for Macromedia Studio was $800, which meant you had to depreciate it for tax purposes. So the yearly software, I had to depreciate it over 3 years. So yeah, that was an interesting one. But I will say that one thing we did lose is, for those who know, this is some of the artwork that you used to get with MetroWorks and CodeWarrior. And I just don't think you're getting artwork like that anymore. And this doesn't count as artwork. So again, for developers, I think that the key thing that developers need to do is talk with your fellow developers on the other platform, read each other's code. It's Kotlin and Swift are pretty similar. And you might also learn something about the other platform in the meantime. Should be scary, I know, for a lot of you, but it's not that scary. They're both interesting platforms to work on. As I wrap up, final thing, I would really like to thank Apple for not releasing any cross-platform development tools at DubDub, because I had most of this written over the weekend. And if you would ever like me to ignore you on a variety of different platforms, they're pretty much ranked in I did log into LinkedIn and found a message from someone that I worked with a year ago asking if I'd like a job, and I was like, probably a year's a bit late for that, but thank you very much.
All right. Do we have any questions for Tubbs? Feel free to pop your hand up. While we think about our questions, I've got a devil's advocate one that I'm just going to give you straight off to start us up. So do you still see value in doing multi-platform development now that a few weeks ago in Google I/O, Android Studio shipped a migrate button that will take a lovely web app or an iOS app and port it to Kotlin native? So why would you still want to do multi-platform development when you could just build an iOS app and then once a week somebody goes into Android Studio and hits migrate?
Yeah, I think it works nice and well for a demo. I suspect that your long-lived app probably won't meet the test of time. It's a great way to get started. I'll give you another one of my soapbox message. I actually think Google missed a real opportunity with Flutter. If they'd gone and gotten rid of Dart, made Kotlin the language of Flutter, and made Flutter the primary Android development thing, and oh, by the way, you can also create an iOS app, I suspect that a lot of companies out there would just build a Flutter / Android app, and then if they really, really had a problem, would then build it on iOS. So that in my mind is the closest I think we've had to a truly what could have been dominant cross-platform environment.
I suspect you're right.
Yeah.
Thanks, by the way. That was really wonderful. Do you have many developers that work on both platforms at the same time?
There's a handful. There's a few of us we're at Mantle, but there's been a few people that have worked on cross-platform. I'm seeing more and more that people are willing to dabble in the other platform now. Like I said, it's not particularly hard, especially if concepts are taken over and things like that. That people will, the one that came up most recently was one of the guys on the team did the feature flags on both iOS and Android. Just boring stuff, but it's easy enough to do and run. And
any other questions for Tubbs? Don't forget, he had several slides on there promising discussion at the pub, so Jared's got lined up at the pub.
Right. Yeah, are there philosophical differences between the two platforms where they actually have to diverge? I'm also thinking, some of them also, like I think Apple has some hardware-specific things from Dynamic Island, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, look, yeah, definitely. And that's one of the reasons why native platforms ultimately, I think, win, is you can get to the 80% mark pretty easily. Display stuff on the screen. But I want to interact with the dynamic island. I want control center. I want and then suddenly, I want widgets. Oh, we want to do some watch integration. Then it's like, oh, we need to write this whole native module on the side, or it's just not possible. I've come across that with a couple of projects where they were locked in, and someone was like, look, it's just not possible. Not as much as often now, but it's that's why I think native wins eventually, is that it's all of those nice to have little things that make us like our native. Like I used to see it, especially on Java apps, be like, doesn't feel like a Mac app. Yeah.
Okay. time for one last question, and I'm
Yeah,
nervous
I'll-
about giving Marcelo a microphone, but
I'm here. Yeah.
right, two questions then.
So with the advent of LLMs, so I was looking at cross-platform framework for my personal project today. Do you think, because I've always been an advocate for C++ cross-platform, because Kotlin, KMP, I don't believe in. I've looked into it. I guess Swift on Android is too nascent to sort of like do anything real. But yeah, I've always been big on having C++ as a cross-platform framework. Do you think that's viable now with LLMs, and then also automating all the tests, and then also automating the integration tests between the two platforms to test for like memory failures or whatever?
Yeah, look, if I was going to write C++, it's with an LLM. It's probably the one language I've probably struggled with the most. But I think you can take there's two ways. One, I think building a cross-platform library is very difficult. Dropbox did it for quite a long time. The actual Dropbox sync engine was written in C++, and lots of people credit it like Dropbox went downhill after they got rid of the greybeard wizards that wrote their sync engine. But I think you can take the same concepts that we talked about here into doing doing that cross-platform development. Is actually build it in Swift and Kotlin, build it on iOS first. But make sure you've got that record of the chat that you've had with your agent, and then once you're happy with what you've built, then go and build it on Android. And I think you'll find that you'll be able to carve out and you go, oh well, these chunks that I've rabbit holes I went down and realised were wrong. I don't need to make them do the same thing on Android. I can just do the half that I need to. So I think for AI development, it's a similar thing. You just, rather than saving developer time, you're saving token cost.
Why are soapboxes so big?
Pardon?
Why are soapboxes so big?
I don't know. They've even got soapbox derbies that they're even bigger.
I think they used to make the soap in the box and then cut it.
I don't know. You seem to know. Yeah.
I should have taken the microphone from you when you had a chance. Thank you very much, Tups.
Thank you.
Cool. I have prepared a few questions about this WWDC week. More about your feelings and impressions on it, actually. So the first question, what was the biggest surprise for you personally this year? Oh, I thought everyone knows them. Of course. So today with me on the panel, Amy.
Hello.
Andy and Kira.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. So now that we are acquainted, what was the biggest surprise this year, if there was any?
Oh, biggest surprise. Lack of health kit improvements. People know me, people know I love health, fitness, and we got, like, the improvements are really good. Data around menopause, perimenopause, absolutely amazing, in a privacy-preserving way, hopefully being Apple, because we all know what happens with women's health data. Also, power zones, heart rate zones, avid cyclist, so I'm just going to make use of that everywhere I can. And yeah, that's probably biggest surprise for me.
Kira, you look like you're ready to go.
You know, I was really surprised by the mea culpa, right? The design mea culpa. And to actually call out in the keynote, hey, we fixed the corner radius because we got it wrong. You know, it takes a long time to turn the ship around to actually go like, no, we're actually going to fix all this stuff, right? You know, all these little things have been bugging people. The idea that you can launch an app 40% faster in this day and age, that no one had written that performance optimization yet, I find that amazing. I'm loving that, you know, something like Claude or OpenAI can just kind of plug in, right? You can, it's just amazing strategy, very Apple, yeah.
My biggest surprise was that there was no big surprises. Like I was expecting, because I was thinking about this new like supposedly MacBook Ultra, and you know, if it's meant to be the Ultra Premium, which I get, I was like, okay, well, you can't really launch a Mac because the Pro and the Max chips are on a 6-month cadence post the new M series launch. So they'll launch the M5s in October, and then the M5 Pros and the Max will launch in March, whatever. But then if they save the MacBook Ultra for an October release, as like the rumor is saying, then like are they going to launch it on like a MacBook or a Mac M6 or something like that? I don't know. That was the biggest kind of like bummer for me. But also, yeah, like I do like the fact that they are having interoperability from the get-go instead of forcing us to use foundation models. I think that was a really, really good decision on their behalf.
And on the flip side, what you were hoping for that wasn't presented this year?
Oh, there's a lot. Health kit. Sorry. Like, as well as that, a better App Store Connect API. Anyone that's done any work with it knows how painful the authentication flow there is. You need to get an actual API key. You need to know the issuer. You need to know the key ID. And pretty much once you've got a key, you can do absolutely anything because it's admin privileges, and that's just horrid.
As someone who's written a Terraform provider for App Store Connect APIs, it is straight up terrible. Even the payload, even though it's like the structured payload. But yeah, like no, I was really hoping, because I convinced myself to buy the 128 gig MacBook Pro, because I convinced myself I need local LLMs in the future, and I really wanted the new MacBook Studio Ultra or whatever it was. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing enough, well, Apple not providing enough justification for people to buy that machine. Yeah, we're not really seeing that yet, and I might have not seen the particular video where they talked about it, but I'm not really seeing a good, this runs on the foundation on this machine, and let you run like a top tier foundation model on that machine. Hasn't been done.
Well, Apple did do a whole heap of work around MLX, and one of the videos did mention about chaining a whole heap of Macs together using Thunderbolt in order to allow for all of these larger models. Now, people like Tufts in his advanced stage will probably remember the days of the Xserves and Xgrid. Thank you, Bok. And I was looking at it and it's like, that's this all over again. Which, yay, because servers, and yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Has anything announced inspired you to implement it right away in your apps?
The new LLMs for translation. Pete Goldsmith did a post about it. I skimmed it, but basically he's saying like they do like has quite a few sub-agents and skills for particularly for the translation. I tried getting Xcode to auto-generate the strings catalog in my project with Xcode 26.5 or whatever. It sucked. But this one I'm probably going to download the beta, give it my strings catalog, which is already being translated, but I'm going to get it to do a second pass. So I think this one's a bit more fortified in terms of the translations.
Not really from me. Amy would have a lot to say.
So pretty much took one evening to get my Health Kitty app going with PCC. So PCC is Personal Cloud Compute from Apple. It now exists as a language model session that you can use in iOS 27. And whereas on-device has a 4,000 token limit, the PCC has a 32,000 token limit, which means you can just do a lot more with language models and sessions. Usual caveats around it being you're sending data off the physical device, whether users are going to be comfortable with that, even though Apple's implementation is secure and verifiable. Like, it's still a bit of a grey area and people will go, yeah, no, I'm not trusting it. So if you're dealing with any sensitive data, with any health data, just give the user the option to toggle it on or off. But I have found the improvements from using it are quite substantial. And it's pretty much just switching out the session as you go.
Cool. Which framework update you think was most exciting?
Like everything is foundation models. So you've got all of the updates around profiles being in there. So just being able to switch out the way a session responds is really, really good. You've got like, okay, I'm cheating a bit with the question because you've got all of this secondary stuff to foundation models being the OpenAI framework, which allows you to develop and bring your own models to foundation models sort of wrapper, and the evaluations framework as well, which allows you to do some really amazing, really good unit testing and sort of being able to look at the reproducibility and the verifiability of all of your LLM interactions in the app.
Yeah, no particular frameworks for me, but mainly just the Xcode 27. I think it looks pretty good. I'm keen that the new, conversational panel is a thing now. And I don't have to switch between, I can switch between that and then the build progress instead of, I don't know, it's just really awkward. Just Xcode, I think, would be pretty cool.
I think I talked about it before about the idea of having a language model protocol. The idea that Apple always wants to commoditize everyone else, right? Apple wants to be special and wants everyone else not to be special, and to make it just a language model. And we can all build like a router, right? We can say, okay, this prompt is really basic, I'm going to serve it on the foundation, or this prompt is a lot, I'm going to put it into Claude. I think that'll change a lot of things. I'm not seeing much talk around routers just yet. I mean, I haven't looked on Hacker News today, so there might be something great out there, but I just find that kind of stuff really amazing. There's so much potential in that to say, yeah, I'm just gonna change one out, and the users don't have to know that you've found something cheaper or better, for instance.
The only sort of caveat there, and Apple has talked about this in the dub videos, is getting the user to authenticate as themselves to Claude so you can actually do that it is a barrier for some users, whereas foundation models doesn't have that. It just assumes and uses your iCloud account. Going on from that, one of the amazing things with foundation models is all of the open source work that they're doing this year. So they're putting a whole heap of sort of toolboxy type stuff like your routers, your transaction histories, your hydration and stuff like that up for free on GitHub. It's open source, you can look at it, you can go, hey Claude, give me an implementation of this, and start using it in your app, or just include it as an SPM package.
I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see if, because as you said, you can plug in your, like, as a developer, you can plug in your Anthropic API key and whatnot. I feel like it's going to be ripe for decompiling the binary, and people are going to rip out some sort of like Claude, like Anthropic APIs, and be like, okay, well, this has got at least like $200 a month on it. I don't know. I can see that happening. People just not being secure with their compiled API keys.
Someone vibed a bit too hard.
This next one is actually more on a discussion, speculative, so to speak. What do you think is the future of iOS versus iPadOS, especially with the new resizable layouts hinted?
Do you think maybe they might realign again, or re-overlap, or bring the overlap to be greater than it currently is? Because there is overlap, right? But they diverged them. I wouldn't say they would probably converge them again, but maybe there's going to be the bigger overlap between them. It's the best I can think of. Well,
so I went to the last in-person Dub before COVID, so the 2019 one, and as a joke, I asked one of the Apple developers, so this was the one where, on stage it was like, oh, we're now announcing iPadOS, right? So as a joke, I asked the developer, did you go and, rename all of these references to iPad? And he's like, no, of course not. It's the same code base. Of course it's the same code base. I think they can definitely merge again. I think it's the foldable phone is all but announced, at least to any developer. We all know what's coming. I think it could be really cool.
I'm going to disagree. I think that there's, right at that start, right at 2019, there was probably very little distinction between them. These days, there's, we as developers, we as users may not see the distinction, but stuff like the keyboard and pointer and focus interaction on iPad is a significant distinction from what is there on iOS. And at that level, it's well, these sort of diverge, there's a divergence. Would they bring it back so that your iPhone can have the same interactions and feel? multi-window support, sort of side by side. Is that even going to make sense on a resizable iPhone? I am not convinced, happy to be wrong, but I do not see a resizable iPhone as being something that will allow side-by-side apps.
It's interesting. I guess time will tell.
Does anyone remember the original Twitter app on iPad where you had the panels? I think I can see that coming back.
Oh,
That'll be a big thing.
That's standard desktop sort of behavior.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that. But yeah.
Another more theoretical question. Probably it would be personal feeling, but I've noticed that there was much less announcement around Vision OS.
I'm fine by that. Yeah, no worries.
What do you think the future of Vision OS is going to be?
Oh, bring it on. Like, not everything gets to be the headline for each year. This year was foundation models and AI and dev tooling as the highlight of both the keynote and the platform State of the Union. So the fact that Vision OS hasn't been as forefront doesn't mean the product is dead. Like, I've long considered Gruber to be irrelevant.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, even the talk show, like, as fun as it is to be there in person at a dub and going to the talk show, it's, yeah, nah. Like, this whole idea of Vision OS being dead, I don't buy into it. As a platform for consumers, it hasn't found its mark just yet. It is very niche at the moment, but I would not equate that with being dead as a platform.
Yeah, I just think it's going to go away for a couple of years and then probably come back when they can sort of bring the technology cheaper, lighter. Yeah. I think there'll be like a phase where they go into the augmented glasses, whatever that may be, and then go back to the Vision Pro. Yeah.
You know, perhaps when the AI bubble pops, all the money will go back to VR. Might make
AI,
a really
VR,
good headset
yeah.
with that kind of money.
That's fair enough. I think we might have time for question from audience, if someone has any. Oh.
Hopefully this doesn't go crazy.
All right. Hello. Okay. So speaking of niche platforms, correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw that watchOS only is supported until Series 9. And so does it mean that watchOS will be niche now, at least watchOS 27?
Is watchOS niche? Hardware compatibility, did it get a whole heap of updates? Sadly not. I would say we'll see hardware updates for it still alongside the September iPhone event. But as a platform, it is so much more constrained than iOS, being how the user can interact with it. Yeah, it's hard to sort of say what the future of it as a platform is, and can they or should they go in a different direction. I still love it. I still use it mainly because it just captures all of my health data and allows me to get some really amazing insights. It still does all of my timers, all of my Siri interactions, because it's just right there. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's niche. I think compared to Vision OS, the watch has its market in health and fitness. and is very solid in that market.
I mean, no intending any puns, but we can do show of hands if it's actually relevant at all. Yeah, Apple Watch, I mean. Still relevant.
I think it got tasteful updates. Like anywhere that you could use Siri on a watch, it's there, right? I think the one that was the glaring omission was the lack of Apple TV integration for Siri. I was in Marcelo's talk; it appeared on none of the product slides at all.
But TV has not been a headline for many, many years. I still love it. I use it probably the most just because it's my background music. It's all of my streaming for any video content. So it's sort of like, where can you take the platform from here? I don't, yeah. There's a lot of speculation as to what you could do, but yeah, it's all guesswork.
I feel like there's currently a growing urge for people to revert away from the screens. I think Google did announce the Whoop. I think they call it the Whoop, where it's like a watch, like a fitness tracker, but it's like the original Fitbit, where it had no screen. It does your pedometer, does your calories or whatever it may be. I think if they're gonna diverge the Apple Watch, they can probably slim it down. But I think it's kind of found its niche as a health tracker / I'm walking around a new city and looking for how to get to something. I use it for my maps all the time.
Yeah, the problem with that sort of Fitbit band is
The margins.
you're sending all your data to Google, which is a bad thing anyway. Sorry, but they've got a horrid reputation for data and killing products and locking people out. So your data would just disappear at some point. And you're also, you need to pay for a subscription in order to get any insights through their rebranded Google Health, which is just the Fitbit app. So, yeah.
Just for context, $25 to $40 a month US for your Whoop subscription.
Oh, so that was $25 to $40 US for the Whoop subscription.
Is it actually Whoop or is it Fitbit? They brought Whoop. Ah. Killed by Google. Sorry, I'm going to go there.
Yep.
No, we'll call it there. We're at time.
Well, we'll go to the pub. We'll go to the
Ask questions at the pub, please.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very insightful, really interesting. I love that difference of opinions. That's what we were hoping for actually here. Thank you very much.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to remind about the next social events that are happening inside the community. The next Wednesday, 17th of June, there's going to be a coding night right here. CocoaHeads Social Night is going to happen on the 24th of June. This is going to be Tuesday. And let's give it up again for our sponsors, Mantel Group and RE Group. And of course, all of you who joined us today. And let's see you in the Mitra Tavern.